Brühl is a small town surrounded by forests in the western part of Germany near Cologne. The town, about 15 kilometers south of Cologne, is home to the castles of Augustusburg and Falkenlust. Augustusburg Palace is linked to the Falkenlust hunting lodge by an avenue which runs through the extensive palace park. Thanks to its historical significance and outstanding state of preservation, this park is included in the garden art route that stretches between the Rhine and Meuse rivers. Germany's castle garden reserves achieve an exemplary balance between the goals of nature conservation and the needs of holidaymakers. In addition to nature conservation, these parks also play an important role in preserving local customs, traditional crafts, historical settlement patterns, and regional architecture. The Castle of Falkenlust, designed by François de Couvelier, is a country house with a symmetrical avant-cour. The foundation stone of the hunting lodge was laid in 1729 by Clemens August, the archbishop and worldly ruler of Cologne, for whom the castle was built. Completed in 1740, the Falkenlust hunting lodge is an excellent example of early Rococo architecture in 18th century Germany. Falkenlust hosted not only many hunting parties, but also high-level political talks. It owes the preservation of its architectural and artistic integrity to the Giesler family, who resided there for almost 130 years, beginning in 1832. Falkenlust was acquired by the state of North Rhine-Westphalia in 1960, and today serves as a museum. The archbishop built a small chapel in the garden to show that he spent his time not just enjoying the pastime of hunting in the castle's magnificent forests, but also in pious prayer. Designed by Pierre Laporterie, the chapel takes the form of an astonishing marine grotto, its walls faced with shells and concretions. The Garden of Brühl Castle, modeled on Versailles, is now a popular destination for those who want to relax in a peaceful, natural setting. The castle gardens are extensive and beautiful, with distinct areas created especially to offer a model habitat for a range of plants and animals. At Falkenlust, the landscaping, although highly concerted, endeavors to create the randomness of a natural site. The main castle of Augustusburg is about 2 kilometers from Falkenlust. The castle is a masterpiece of the Rococo style and exemplifies the greatest architectural tendencies of the first half of the 18th century. Commissioned by the Elector and Archbishop of Cologne, Clemens August von Wittelsbach, 3 of the period's most renowned architects collaborated on this elegant residence in Brühl. Johann C. Schlaun was initially charged in 1725 with designing the castle, but 3 years later François Cuvillier was appointed to redesign the whole into a more modern style. The palace is a building composed of 3 wings with a hip roof arranged around a cour d'honneur. The history of the site of the Castle of Augustusburg is linked to the history of the region. The first documentary reference to Buhl was recorded in the year 1180, when Archbishop Philip von Heinsberg of Cologne established a manor house there to administer local affairs. It soon became an important local seat. Buhl received its city charter from Archbishop Siegfried von Westerburg in 1285, and self-administering courts were established. In 1469, Buhl became the capital of the county and was also chosen as the residence of the Cologne archbishops. For almost 150 years, the territory of Cologne's archbishops was ruled from Buhl. The castle was blown up by foreign troops in 1689, and much of the town was destroyed by fire. In 1725, Elector Clemens August had the Augustusburg Palace built on the ruins of the old castle. In the aftermath of the French Revolution, the electorate of Cologne ceased to exist. The palace was taken by French troops, who pillaged all of the remaining furniture. When Napoleon saw the palace in 1804, he is supposed to have said that he regretted the fact that it had no wheels. The palace passed into Prussian ownership in 1815. Thanks to King Friedrich Wilhelm IV, the building was saved. He first stayed here in 1842, and then ordered the rooms to be renovated. After being overhauled, the Augustusburg Palace was used again as a residence in the period 1876 to 1877, when Emperor Wilhelm I took part in the Autumn maneuvers in the Eifel. Today, the palace belongs to the government of North Rhine-Westphalia. The Augustusburg Castle was seriously damaged during the Second World War. Restored shortly thereafter, it was used for several decades, beginning in 1949, as a representative seat of the President and government of the Federal Republic of Germany. Today, the Augustusburg Castle, by many considered the most outstanding Rococo castle in the Rhineland, is open to the public. Every year, from the beginning of May until the end of August, it is the site of the Buhl Castle concerts. The castle, a bold and successful revamping of the overly traditional construction of Schlaun, together with the hunting lodge of Falkenlust, a dazzling creation, and their gardens, are outstanding examples of early 18th century German Rococo architecture. They attest to the magnificence of a bygone era, when the powerful archbishops ruled many German cities in a princely manner. In 1984, the Augustusburg Castle, along with Falkenlust Castle, were included on the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Thanks to painstaking reconstruction work, the grounds of Augustusburg Palace and Falkenlust Hunting Lodge are among the best preserved works of Baroque garden art in Europe. The park is divided into the main parterre and several other self-contained areas. After 1842, it was redesigned for Friedrich Wilhelm IV of Prussia, in the style of an English landscape garden by the famous landscape gardener Peter Joseph Lenne. The splendid Baroque Augustusburg garden, though meticulously planned, still has a natural relationship with the landscape. The garden is bordered by the town of Buhl on the one side, while on the other it is contained by a wood, a canal, and then farmland. Created as a summer residence for the Archbishop and Elector of Cologne, the Augustusburg garden has a light-hearted feel. The large and very well-kept parterre de broderie, which forms the central feature of the design, has a dominant central axis that extends into the woods. It then intersects other avenues to form a star, one ray of which leads across farmland to the hunting lodge of Falkenlust. Dominique Girard, the French pupil of eminent landscape architect André Lenôtre, who also worked at Schleißheim and Nymphenburg, designed the garden at Falkenlust. The woods were subsequently adapted to the serpentine landscape style by Peter Joseph Lenné in 1842. Girard's original garden design still exists and strictly follows the innovations and subsequent rules of the French style. One important factor that contributed to the flowering of landscape architecture in Germany was the increased power of the region's many princelings, great and small. The idea of sovereignty began to show itself particularly along with the increased prosperity of the second half of the 17th century, and led to the creation of splendid homes. For most of the princes, especially those in North and West Germany, Versailles provided a model of royal splendor that the princes strove to imitate. A few found inspiration in the model of the Renaissance Italian rulers from beyond the Alps. Le Nôtre, who worked for French King Louis XIV, was the era's truly great name, and once his reputation had spread across the Rhine, it became fashionable to hire a landscape architect who had somehow or other got his education by having studied with Le Nôtre or his school. French-style gardens were very similar to those of the Italian Renaissance. Formal gardens of the Renaissance period from the late 15th to the early 17th century were designed to express the power and importance of their owner, a style later adopted by the creators of many of the French royal gardens. French-style gardens, like the Augustusburg Gardens, were designed to be both symmetrical and geometrical. Paths and walkways were carefully laid out and included elaborate water features such as fountains and ponds, along with abundant statuary. French Renaissance gardens were laid out in parterres, with ornamental flower beds and paths arranged to form a pattern, and often lined by meticulously clipped hedges of boxwood. Augustusburg and Falkenlust represent the first, and in many ways the most important creations of the Rococo in Germany, a style that was quickly imitated by other Germanic rulers. For more than 1 century, they provided the dominant model for many important princely courts in the region. These castles and gardens provide an excellent example of the large princely residence of the 18th century.